Hello, busy bees. Good to see you all again, and just tuning in for week 9 of our prayer journey together, our prayer course, and looking ahead at the topic this week, which is prayer as a journey, and looking at ways that as we go through prayer and meditation, how what happens along the way can often shift our focus and maybe leave us with some new understanding or new insight by the end of the prayer, and how that journeying through the process of prayer can take us somewhere. And so very concretely, looking at how physical movement can guide us through something of a journey of prayer. And so the one sort of prayer practice that I tie with this is the practice of walking a labyrinth. For those who may have not seen a labyrinth, it's generally it looks like a maze. It's generally rounded, and there's different paths that sort of wind, and there's a location, a sort of destination in the center. And then you wind your way back out and take the path that you went on the way in to come back out. As much as it might look like a maze, a labyrinth is not a maze. There are no options to go right or left. There's only one path in and one path out. And so you can't get lost in a labyrinth. You just keep walking. But as you walk through a labyrinth, it's not necessarily winding together into the center or winding out. The way the labyrinth is situated is it may look like you're coming close to the center, and then you might make a turn, and then you find yourself way out on the outside of or the outer edges of the labyrinth, and then all of a sudden you may be on the outer edges of the labyrinth, and then you take a turn and you find yourself right in the middle, and it's often very surprising. But it's a wandering path. It's not necessarily a straight path. And you can take it at your own pace and walk. Maybe you walk through it quickly, or maybe you walk through it slowly and take your time. And generally the movement is that you follow the path of this labyrinth until you get to the very middle of the path. And then you take the same path back out. And then sometimes people do this together in groups, so you might see a line of people following the path, and it can get interesting when people walk at different paces. Admittedly, I will tend to walk a little quicker, and so sometimes I come up behind someone who's going slower, and I have to remind myself not to get labyrinth road rage. But it does maybe remind us, if you're walking it as a group, that maybe we need to slow down as well. And there's a lot of metaphors that you can have as you're walking through a labyrinth. The fact that it's a wandering path, maybe the paths that we're called to take are not always so apparent. Maybe the paths that we're called to take, there are times in our lives where we feel more centered, or we feel closer to God, and then at a turn we feel farther away. And so those paths can take us to all kinds of different places, and a labyrinth can illustrate that as well. A neat thing, if you ever want to find labyrinths in your area, there's a neat website that I came across when I was looking up some things for this week, and it's called labyrinthlocator.com. It's a really neat website. I started getting into it, and you can either put in your state or your city or zip code, and it'll tell you what labyrinths are near you. And I actually discovered a few local to where I am. I didn't realize we're in town, so there's about 4 labyrinths that suddenly I realized I should go check out. 2 of them are at hospitals, 2 of them are at churches, so it's a fun way to find labyrinths. And maybe if you're traveling around, it's a neat thing to look up. Just go online. Again, that's labyrinthlocator.com, and you can find labyrinths in your area, and probably some that because they might be indoors or might be on a property you never thought to go and explore before. But the website also gives you details about if it's, say, indoors at a church, the hours that you might be able to go by and visit it. So it's a neat thing to check out, and would highly encourage it. So again, getting back to this idea of prayer as a journey, there's a lot of different ways to sort of meditate while walking a labyrinth. Sometimes you can look at it as an inhale and an exhale. Sometimes you can look at it as thinking of what is burdening you or what you have noticed in the day as you go into the labyrinth, and focusing in on questions you might have or petitions you might have or things that are concerning you, things that are weighing heavily on you. And then at the center, sort of using that as a moment to turn over those burdens. And then as you walk out, it's like ascending of sorts. You walk out of the labyrinth thinking about how you are called to go on about your day as you leave this labyrinth. One of the interesting observations that we made in the in-person class today was that the pattern of the labyrinth can be seen as like the pattern of worship, that we're gathered together and then we worship together and do something worshipful together, and then we're sent out. And so that's a little bit of a pattern that the labyrinth aligns with. But there's different ways to focus as you're walking the labyrinth. But also, the labyrinth is just one kind of journey, and so another practice that I have looked at having is being able to have a walking prayer of sorts. I'm fortunate to live in a place where there's lots of options for me to go out and walk, and different neighborhoods that I can walk or run through. And so a lot of times the prayer practice that I'll use is to say, if I have 30 minutes in a day to go and walk, I will walk 15 minutes out and then turn around and come 15 minutes back. And kind of using that like a labyrinth sort of practice, that on the 15 minutes out, I'll focus in on what do I notice? What do I see, smell, hear around me? And what does that bring up in me? And thinking about why were these the things that I noticed, and what is going on around me, and what could possibly be going on with the people around me every day. And then getting to that point where I'm ready to turn around and come back and think of a prompt of how am I called to meet these people that I see? And as I walk back, do I see them differently because I have been thinking and praying on the way out? How has that journey on the way out changed the journey on the way back as well? So that's another thing to think about. Sometimes you can walk a loop, or again walk that journey out and journey back in as a prayer practice. And then where you walk can dramatically impact what you pray for. So if you live in a neighborhood and it's mostly houses that surround you, maybe it's praying for the neighbors that live in those homes, and the different homes and what those different homes and families look like. Or maybe your walk takes you by a school, so you're praying for the students that go to the school and whatever those students face. I live in kind of a sort of mixed area where there's businesses and tourists and all kinds of a mix of things just in a very short span. So it means that often my prayers end up going all over the place because there's something different each time that I focus on. But again, this is a prayer practice that you can take with you wherever you go, whether you find time in your day to walk at work, or whether you find time in your day when you get home, or whether it's while you're on vacation and exploring a new place. What are the prayers that you could pray in the midst of that exploring? So I think there's something to tying our prayers to where our feet take us out into the world, and where our feet take us as we wander, the prayers can always go with us. So over the course of this week, it'd be neat to see where all you journey to and where all your prayers and your feet take you. And so feel free to share pictures along the way as to where your prayer practice has literally carried you, and share those prayers and offer those prayers, and we will be praying right along with you. And it'd be neat to see where all you go as you pray this week. And if you get a chance to also check out a Labyrinth this week, feel free to offer those pictures as well, or if you've been to one in the past, offer those pictures as well, maybe in the comment section below. And that's a neat way to offer up how different labyrinths come in all different shapes and sizes. So it's been amazing to walk with you on this journey of discovering prayer so far, and hope that you continue on with us. We have one more week left. We have kind of a week to wrap up and think back on where we've been in this journey of prayer practices. And so thank you all for journeying along with us, and hope you have a great week. All right, take care. Bye.